Hello and welcome back to Courage Dear Heart. This is Charli Wall. Thank you so much for joining me again. This week I want to introduce you to a wonderful, wonderful man called Robin Lockhart. Robin is someone that I've never met in real life, but I've been aware of his work with young people through the field that I work in behavioural change, the 3 principles. He is just an extraordinary man, and I could have listened to him all day. He's done some amazing work with young people. I'm going to put his bio, his website, and some of the films and projects and documentaries that he's made in the show notes. But the one I wanted to just tell you a little bit about before you listen to this podcast, and Robin does actually talk about this during the interview, is that he and his company made a documentary in London called East Side Story, where they went into, schools in London where there are gangs, and created a documentary, a film called East Side Story, based on obviously West Side Story, and made a sort of modern day version of that with these children who are in gangs, and help them to see their innate health and get them over the mentality of the gang state. And it's absolutely wonderful to watch if you get the chance to watch it, or you have some time to watch it. It was filmed by the BBC. It's now on Vimeo, which I'll put the link in. But he's an extraordinarily wise man, and it's just such a wonderful, wonderful interview. One of the words that he talks about during the interview is this sense of Ubuntu. And it's an ancient African word meaning humanity to others. And what he talks about is that we are reminding ourselves that I am what I am because of who we all are. He talks about this sense of community, circles, the importance of community, the importance of circle, the importance of connection. And this is something deep, deep into my heart, because as you know, if you are a listener of my podcast or you're a member of my community, I have a circle of women. I have a circle membership. I absolutely agree with that sentiment that connection is vital for people to know and experience all of who they are. So I present to you the very wonderful Robin Lockhart. I hope you enjoy this. Welcome back to Courage Dear Heart. This is Charli Wall, and today I am joined by Robin Lockhart. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Charli. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I've had a few days of cold and cough, and I spent the weekend in bed. But today I'm feeling like I'm back to being my normal self again. So yeah, just in time.
Oh, that's great. Me too. I've had a bit of a snot bags moments, a few of them.
Yeah, I've not even been able to go and play in the snow that we've got here. It's been...
Oh, I haven't got any snow here in Norfolk, so hopefully you'll get out there tomorrow.
Hopefully there'll still be some. I'll look out the window, still a bit out there.
So before we get on to you and a little bit about you, my podcast, as you know, is called Courage Dear Heart. And I'd love to know what courage means for you.
Courage is, for me, it's a really special thing. Obviously, the word means it's of the heart. And with me being Robin Lockhart, it means a lot to me already before we even get into it. I think that the heart, more than the mind, is what gets us through tough. I think if we have the heart for something, it sees us through things. Whereas we can get lost sometimes in the mind, thinking about how we're going to find strength and how we're going to find what we need to get through a tough thing. Also, in the work that I do, particularly the work I've been doing with young people for many years, we've talked a lot about courage because it feels like it's something different to all other emotional states. For instance, a lot of the time we do lots of work with young people who are feeling low. They've got no confidence. They might be, diagnosed with something. They might have been through something horrific. And they often say, I need to get my confidence back. And I always say to them, are you sure? Because I don't think you need confidence to do the things that you're talking about wanting to do. I think you need courage. And I can remember one girl has just popped into my head. We were having the conversation because she couldn't get over a big, huge, high wall that we were climbing over. It was a assault course thing. She seemed to think that confidence would get her over there. And we just said, no, it's courage that's going to get you over there. You'll get the confidence once you've done it. Like, confidence is the prize you get after doing the thing that frightens you. Courage is the thing you need in order to do the things that are scaring you. And afterwards, when she came down, she was buzzing. I mean, she was leaping around everywhere. She had that confidence that we predicted. And we had a conversation in the group afterwards when we went back inside about, we can pretend. Like, I could pretend to be really happy now. And if you believe me and anybody watching this thing believes me, I still know I'm pretending. If I pretend to be angry with people, even if everybody else believes me, I still know I was pretending. But if you just trick yourself into pretending you have courage and then do the thing that scares you, by definition, it wasn't pretense because you did it. So you can't fake courage. I think we all have it. It's the thing that, as I say, it's the thing that we need. It's the thing that we rely on, whether we're aware of it or not. But it's a lovely opening question, and something that I don't think many people think about. I mean, that's my thoughts on what other people think, which is already getting a bit confusing. Yeah, not go down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
No. Well, because most of my clients come to me and how I kind of came into this understanding this field was because I struggled with my thoughts, right? So yeah, definitely courage is something I agree. I think we all have. I just never knew I had it until I believed enough people who'd said, you've got so much courage. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast and call it Courage to Heart, because I realized, gosh, if I didn't realize I had it, how many other people don't realize that they have that as a sort of innate.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about you, like introduce yourself to my listeners who are going to be, a huge pot of people who've never come across your work.
And I understand that you work mainly, if not exclusively, with women.
I do, yes.
It's fantastic. I mean, in my book, actually, I'll quote a namesake of mine, Robin Williams, who I idolized as a child. I thought he was phenomenal. Yeah. And I'm old enough to remember Mork and Mindy and all of those things that he did right at the beginning.
Yes.
He said something around, this might not be a direct quote, he said something like, if women ran the world, there would be no more war. But every month there would be 1 week of intense negotiation. Which is okay by me. So
maybe not at my age anymore, but yes.
yeah. So I've been working in, I've been doing what I do for more than 20 years. I run an organisation called Catalyst in Communities. We're a non-profit, and got into that after having worked in the music industry for a while, got into youth work through that, started to do projects with young people and loved it. And eventually decided that I wanted to do that work more than anything else. I haven't really changed the way I work. I've done lots of courses and studying, and I think I've improved over the 20 odd years, as you do when you do something over and over again. But it probably is only in the last 10 years that people have said to me, yeah, what you do is coaching. And I was like, is it? I don't know. I was just, when you're running a youth centre or running youth projects, you become an uncle, a brother, a father in other people's minds. You have to be adaptable. You have to help people find new solutions to their problems that they've been going through. And you have to be quick. You have to be quick on your feet, and you have to be able to think and respond kind of in the moment, rather than just reflecting on things and then improving when you come back. So what we do at Catalyst in Communities is run projects. We're based in East and BC. Before COVID hit us, we were doing projects all over the world. It was a huge privilege. We were working with young people all over the place and training others to do the sort of work that we do. And if I'm honest and brave, which I think I need to be on your podcast,
I think courage. Have courage.
Exactly. The reason that we've had so much success in our practice with the organisation is that we've recognised that young people are no different to everybody else. The only difference is that they're a bit younger. Whereas some other approaches, and I'm not slagging off other youth work approaches, I'm just saying that some other approaches to working with young people are that they're a little bit less than. There's a bit of a deficit model where you've got the young people here and the professionals here, and they're looking up for solutions. And we start here. We kind of go, all right, you might be 15, but age and maturity are not linked. Wisdom and age are not linked.
Very true.
Let's get to know each other. And we're often asked in our practice by parents, by schools, by prisons, by pupil referral units, anywhere where you find young people, we're often asked if we can fix them. And my stock response is, well, you think I've got some magical special voodoo abilities, which we have been accused of, by the way. But they say, oh, but we've been told that you do amazing projects and people transform. And I said, yeah, they transform. I don't transform them. I run a process that they do the hard work, they do the change work. If they buy into it, they can transform their lives. But I don't say that I did that to them. We're both involved in that process. And I think that, again, we don't do projects to young people. We work for them and with them. And it was probably about 6 or 7 years into my sort of new field of working with young people, all those years ago, when I recognized that you can't work with young people in isolation. It doesn't make sense. Young people are part of families, or they're part of a care home, or they're part of a community, or they're part of a football club. But, they have friends and family and a wraparound service, or a wraparound, support network that they turn to. So if we're going to work with a young person around a particular challenge, we have to work with those others as well. We call them their community. And at that point, we started to do lots of work with families as well. So although I'm known as being a youth worker, doing this kind of change work, it's not actually strictly true, because we work with the whole community, and we place young people firmly in the center of that. I don't know, do you know the old African proverb about it takes a village to raise a child?
Yes, I do, yes.
Yeah. Most people know that bit. A lot of people don't know the bit that comes after that, was if you don't initiate that child properly into the village, into the tribe, it might burn down the village just to feel a little warmth.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think that's what we've done as a society. We have not nurtured our youth and our young people. And in practice, it's actually one of my colleague Bob Singer's catchphrases, if you like. One of his mantras is that young people don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. We need them. If we don't invest in them, if we don't help them to become the best kind of adult that they can be, whatever that means to them, because everybody has a different idea of what success and being good at something means, we are creating problems for ourselves in the future. So I do, and my team do, whatever we can to improve the opportunities that young people have access to. We trust them, we believe in them, we hand the reins to them. So we quite often, all of our work is done in a circle. We've done a lot of, have you heard of restorative justice and restorative practice? We did a lot of that kind of work when it was sort of trendy. And I don't know if I mentioned to you, I'm a Zambian born. I was born in a little tiny village in Zambia. So I didn't stay there very long. I think I came to Scotland when I was 4 or something, and then moved to London in my early teens, I think. But that Southern African philosophy of Ubuntu is something that's really, really close to my heart. It sits there with the courage. And
yeah,
I think
speak
that
to us about that, because there might be some women or listeners who haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that if it was widely practiced, the world would be a different place. It roughly translates, it's Ubuntu, that's how it's spelled, Ubuntu. And it roughly translates as I am because we are, and because we are, I am. So it's a really kind of connective philosophy. We can't survive without each other. And in fact, I wouldn't know I existed unless I had somebody, you, the other, to mirror and to comment and to interact with me and to connect with me. We are a collective. That's what humans are. We need each other. So in terms of the work that we do, we come from that place where we need young people in order for our business to survive. We need participants for our business to survive, but they're not customers. They don't pay us, which is for a coach, that's an interesting paradigm. Usually the person sat in front of you has paid you money to be there. That's hardly ever the case with us. It is if we're working with an adult on their own and they're not part of a youth or a community project, because we do some private work as well. But it changes things, because sometimes the young people we work with don't want to be there at the beginning. They've been forced to be there. It might be a condition of a court order. It might be part of a sort of recovery program. But we very, very quickly point that out. We very, very quickly talk about the difference of approach. You could come into this room, you could come into this circle, into this project, and let's say we've got 12 sessions together, and each session is 2 hours. We'll say to them, so we're going to be together for a total of 24 hours. And by the end of it, it could be shit. It really could be boring. It could be nonsense. It could be a total waste of time, for your time and my time, and whoever's paid for its time and money. Is that what you want? And the result normally, and I'm trying to think of a time if it hasn't happened, I'll say always the result is But they go, no, of course not. We want it to be good. So then we get them to in a little bit of a slower pace and start saying to them, well, how does that happen? I want it to be good too. And I'm prepared to give 100%. I want, at the end of these 24 hours or 3 weeks or whatever the program is, I want you to look back on it and remember it for the rest of your life. I want you to know that this is the time that changed you forever, changed your perception of who you are, who you can become, what's in the way, what you need to change, what you need to do, what you need to stop doing, all of these things. So if I give 100% and you give 0, is it going to be wicked? Is it going to be great? No. So if I don't give 100%, hold me to account. What do I do if you're not giving 100%? And they usually go, hold me to account? Go, great, thank you. So we have these phrases that kind of embed themselves in our practice. So we'll say things like, if I let you off, I'd be letting you down. So you said you want to improve, you said you want to change, you said you want to leave whatever the thing is behind, whether it's gang violence or whether it's depression or self-harm or any of these issues that would have come up with young people. That's only going to happen if you jump in with both feet and you take the plunge, you get involved in this process. It's very easy to sit in the room and let the time drift by and then blame me because you didn't change. You know, I can't wave a magic wand. I can run a process. I can facilitate a process that, you know, I find it hard to say because I'm so humble, but you know, I'm an internationally recognized expert in this process. And they go, what do you mean? Why are you with us in our school then? And I go, because I've chosen to do this work. And why do you think you're less important than, you know, if I was jetting off to LA to do this with some superstar, is that more important than you? Really? So we love the work that we do. Me and Bob have been doing it together for about 8 years now, and separately doing very similar work on our own before we met, and then our paths crossed about 8 or 9 years ago. And it's been a real privilege and a real pleasure to work in that arena in the way that we have. You know, we've done some big things. We're quite a small organization, but we've done some big things that, you know, we've punched way above our weight, really. I think that's the phrase that most people use. When they find out that there's like 5 of us, they go, what? How did you do that? How did you do that BBC documentary? And how did you do that thing?
Well, I was going to ask you about the BBC documentary, because just so that people who are listening might be able to find it and see what you've done, and you know, because I put it into my group, and cool. Yeah, a lot of them watched it, and it's very moving. Yeah,
and if you think, I mean, that's my job.
Which is quite incredible, right?
It's beautiful. I mean, it came about quite ludicrously easy, is the way that it was described to me. Right. I had the idea of doing this project called East Side Story, loosely based on West Side Story, and bringing 2 opposing groups of young people together, knowing that most of them were probably not only not heard of West Side Story, but probably not read Romeo and Juliet, or won't know that. But all the themes are so relevant today. This thing about territory, this thing about rivalry, opposing families, gangs, violence, all of that. So we decided that we would do it, me and Bob, and we were going to do it in Newham, the borough that our offices are based in East London. And then the borough that I live in, which is Waltham Forest, we were the first London borough of culture back in 2019. So when they announced that the Waltham Forest was going to be the first borough of culture, I said, let's do it in Waltham Forest. And we went to the borough. They thought it was a wonderful idea. We went to the London mayor. He thought it was a wonderful idea. And we cobbled together some funding from various sources. And then I was describing what we planned to do to my sister, Claire, at my parents' house one afternoon. And she said, well, this would make a really good documentary. And I went, yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Thinking, I don't make documentaries. I don't really know how to do that. But she's an ex-BBC person. So she managed to get she made some calls, and we had some meetings, and it got commissioned really, really quickly. Even at the beginning of the process, it was a crazy process. We worked with each group on their own estate, and these estates are traditionally rivals, and you know, there has been violence. They are rivals. Some of the people who live there are rivals, but there's a perception that everybody is rival. So if you're under 25 and you live on that estate, you got to be wary of all the people that are your age from that estate, which is a notion. It's not true. And we did the whole creative project took 12 weeks, which was nuts. So we put young people in a room, there and there. We worked with them separately for 4 weeks, telling each other we're going to be working with them and we're going to be working with them. And they all were like, no, what are you talking about? We can't. Like, if they come to see us on stage, the people were going to get beaten up. It's going to be horrible. And we said, so don't invite those people. We want to do a fully professional production that blows people's minds. We're going to sell tickets and we're going to have a BBC documentary. And at the beginning of the process, we hadn't secured the commission. So we had no script, no venue, no BBC, but we went with it. And what we try to do, we always like to have something that feels a little bit scary and a little bit out of our reach as the staff, as the facilitators, because we're asking those young people in the room to do something that's frightening and out of their reach. So we have to model the behavior. We have to say, well, we're doing it too. So I mean, we were saying, look, this is, when we get the BBC cameras in this room, and if the play is shit, it's going to be the end of my career. You know, my relatives all over the world are going to watch it and laugh at me. So we better make it really good. So we did the 3 weeks separately, sorry. And on the 4th week, we brought the two groups together. Neutral space out in the countryside, which you see on the documentary in Woodrow High House in Amersham, beautiful venue in the snow. And within minutes, the groups kind of just became one. You know, we spoke about it. We said, you know, you've been talking about them, they've been talking about you. You've had all the same exercises. We showed them the same film clips. We ran them through the same learning processes. I said, we could spend hours comparing notes and finding out what you learned and finding out what you learned, but we ain't got time. We've got a play to do. So let's see what we can do. And I mean, one of the moments that will stick with me for the rest of my life is, as you see in the documentary, you see a young woman called Tiana sing just to a piano that my friend Elroy was accompanying her with. And you see her at the beginning of the process, hardly able to talk in the group. She was so anxious and afraid of everything. And quite rightly, I mean, her family had been through some tough things. And at that residential, she came to me and she said, I think I've written a song. And I said, can you sing? She said, I don't know. And I was like, well, there's a piano over there. And Delroy, you could go and work out some chords and some melodies and come back in 10 minutes and let's see what you can do. And when she sang, it was like time stood still for all of us. I mean, it brought us to our knees. The cameraman, all of us were in tears. The cameraman had to stop filming at one point. You could see that this was a pivotal moment in her life. All of her self-limiting beliefs, all of the lies that she'd been told about who she was and what she was capable of or what she wasn't capable of, crumbled in that moment. And that doesn't mean that Tiana's going to have no problems ever again in life. It doesn't mean that her life is going to be on that trajectory. It's going to be up and down like life always is. But she now knows that she has the courage. She has something within her to be able to see her through that. And I get to do that regularly. It's like, I get to do it. It's wonderful work. It's wonderful. It's a real privilege. I can share that. I can share a link because it's not on iPlayer anymore. But I can share a link.
You sent me a link on Vimeo.
Group, yeah.
You sent me a link.
Yeah, you can share that. Share that.
Can I share that in the show notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'd love it if the BBC took me to court for this. That's crazy. I mean, they seem to think that the whole project was about a documentary. And we were like, no, you're filming our project. And then we had drama practitioners and music practitioners, and our project continued for a whole year after the documentary was shown. So we did the 12 weeks, we did the play, we kept the group together. We still carried on working with them. We still did one-to-ones and group work for another whole year after that. So it was a 2-year project. It wasn't about the play. It wasn't really about the documentary. It was about those young people who featured in the play and the documentary. And we're still in touch with quite a few of them. Tiana's still around. She's now mentoring and helping other young people, which is wonderful to see. Quite a few of them have become part of our team when they're around. They've got busy lives. They're doing things and studying and working and things like that. How dare they desert us?
Yes. They've flown the nest.
But that's how sometimes in youth work, that's how it feels. People that, I remember a boss of mine saying, where's that kid who was really good at table tennis? Why is he not coming anymore? Because he's good at table tennis. I got him. He's now working with the Olympic team. Well, we need more members. Why have you let him go? Because I want him to become an Olympian. Oh, well, I don't want to hold him here playing with everybody who can't beat him. He should go and live his life and become amazing. For me, that's what it's about. Just creating an opportunity for people to discover how wonderful they really are. Yeah.
Yes.
What a rambling introduction. Thank you.
That's not rambling at all. That was, there's so, I love what you're saying about the working with the young people, and I feel the same way about working with the women that I work with. You literally get to see them, hopefully, see them really connect to that place in them that they've forgotten about, firstly from being young, right? And secondly, that place in them that isn't broken and doesn't need fixing, which is where so many people spend their lives. So you and I met through the principles world, kind of, and we've never met in real life, but I know you, I know your work, and I'd love to know one of the questions that my listeners like me to ask is, like, was there anything that you have seen for yourself around the principles? I mean, it sounds like you were already doing a lot of this work. What was it that, did it give you anything that you didn't already have, that you didn't know you already had?
Yeah, I've often pondered that. I love listening to Sydney Banks and watching Sydney Banks. It reminds me of my granddad. It's got a similar kind of inflection in his voice. My granddad was from Scotland. So there was an immediate, well, again, in my heart, there was an immediate warmth there. And I love, for me, what the principles really did for me was it articulated something that I think has always been true in a 20th century Western way that was easy for us to understand in the West, whatever that means, whatever the West is. I never really grasped that. If Europe is the West and America is the West and Australia is the West, what? But it points towards something that in other cultures is just generally accepted and widely known and practiced. And I've had, as I said at the beginning of this call, I've had the privilege of being able to travel to all kinds of places to do this work. I've done Ubuntu circles in villages in India and in the Caribbean and in Uganda, all over the place, Hungary. And young people will say the same things. And from those, particularly those other sort of Hindu or African traditions, or sort of indigenous type traditions, they kind of go, yeah, we know that. But of course it's inside out. The world, you're creating your reality, you're projecting rather than receiving what's real for you. And it's a really, really helpful and easy way for me to articulate what that kind of practice, that kind of approach to life is all about. I don't get hung up on, whether I use the words that Sydney would have liked, or whether I don't get hung up on any of that. I'm a practitioner. I want to do things. I want to work with people. I don't want to get caught in the sort of semantics of it, if you like. No. But it's a wonderful, easy approach. It doesn't do the work for you. It doesn't mean that you'll never have problems once you've grasped it. And I think
what do you mean? God damn it!
It's not a magic wand, but it really it's in the falling out of the understanding that we learn. So I can remember. I mean, I first heard Sydney Banks recordings years before I bothered to read anything. I listened to them. I thought that's wonderful, and then listened to something else, and then listened to something else, and listened to something else. And it was probably about 10 years ago that I got a book. I think I started with The Enlightened Gardener. I read that and thought it rung something for me. It felt different. And I know there's a lot of discussion in the sort of principles world about intellectual understanding and sort of embedded intuitive understanding. And I think it takes a while to travel from one to the other. You can read the words and go, yeah, this makes sense. But until it's in your heart, until it's part of you, part of your daily life, you won't reap the benefits. You can't, because it's something you're thinking about. But even, the world leaders in that field will say, and I've heard them say, and I've had conversations with them where they've told me they fall out. They know about this illusion at play, but it still tricks you every day. Yeah. That's how potent, that's how powerful this illusion is. But it's in that seesawing from being in the right flow kind of state where everything's easy and it's all working and you can see what's going on and feel what's going on. to being confused and being muddled up and thinking, oh my God, poor me, what's going on? And then you catch yourself. And I think what's happened for me is it's allowed me to not only notice when I've been caught out quicker, but allowed me to sort of snap back into going, hey, hang on, what are you doing here? You're getting all stuck in your thoughts and you're creating all kinds of problems that aren't real, aren't true. You've made them all up. That bit of the equation happens a lot quicker now. Yeah. But it's you used the word reminding ourselves, like you said we've forgotten something. And we often talk about that in the room with our cohorts, usually with young people. We'll say, we're not teachers. We're not going to teach you anything. We're going to remind you of things you already know.
Yes.
Things that you knew when you were a child that you've put to one side and refused to bring to the fore anymore. We're going to remind you of that stuff. The same stuff that enabled you to learn how to walk, which is hard. The same stuff that enabled you how to talk, which is tough. How to learn how to read and write, which is tough. All of that courage you still got within you. And we're just going to remind you about how to bring it to the front, how to find it again. So I think the principles has been really helpful for me. It's when you speak about it, if you say to people, right, I've got these 3 principles I want to teach you, they go, oh. Because it sounds too simple to be a solution. It can't. How can it be that easy? And it isn't, but it's a really easy way to articulate. That's the power of what I think Sydney Banks did, was articulate it in a really easy to understand way. And you can't force people to change. Change feels really difficult. It feels impossible. It feels really, really, really tough until it isn't. The change happens. You could spend 10 years wanting to change and trying to change and seeking the right solution and going to see doing meditation, going to the gym and go for walks in the forest and taking some, whatever it is that you've done, going for coaching, going for therapy, until your mind changes, which takes that long. Nothing else can change. It all starts in the mind. And reminding people reminding is such a lovely word, isn't it?
It is. Yes, remind. Yes.
Remind is minding again. If you can mind about your life, if you can mind about your future, if you can mind, do you mind that you're currently on a trajectory to failure? Let me remind you that you could switch that round. It gives people power because it has to come from them. So we can facilitate processes, we can give them support, we can help them and support them and guide them and give them some reading and give them some things to watch and things to feel. Until they choose it, it can't happen because it's inside out. We have a lot of our work is focused on engagement and connection, which that whole Ubuntu piece really, really simplifies for us. Without that feeling of connection, I don't know what the phrase is, no support worker, no change worker, no therapist, guide, coach, psychotherapist, whoever can help you. And I really think that it's the connection that does that lifting. The connection is like 90% of the struggle. If you feel valued and valuable and connected and included and involved and respected, you start to feel better. A lack of that is what causes you to feel bad in 101 different ways. And we provide opportunities for people to start to feel that again. Yeah.
Do you think, given, I know you work primarily with young people, do you think it's easier with young people than it is adults? Is it easier?
It's a really tough question. Cool. Charli.
Come on my podcast, they said. It'd be a laugh, they said.
It's easier with some people than others, regardless of age. I mean, I've met 14-year-olds I would trust my life with, I would vote for, I would let them run the world. And I've met, I'm 54, I've met people my age that I wouldn't trust with anything. But I think that there comes a point where no matter who you are, whatever age you are, whatever experiences you've had, how horrible they've been, whatever modalities of, trying to change things you've tried, there comes a point where we have to take ownership of who we are. We have to take ownership of what we're prepared to let go of, what we're prepared to do or stop doing Often it's the stopping doing something, isn't it, that makes the difference.
Yes.
And again, that's a perfect example of this thing about, mind, thought and consciousness. It feels really difficult to stop, but it's illogical. How can it be difficult to not do something? Like, it should be easy if you're not doing it. The rest is in here. The rest is just in here. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Even things like addictions, people trying to give up smoking. It's like, but not lighting it. Like, why is that hard? You think it's hard. It's not hard to not do something. We think it's difficult. We think it's difficult to stop stressing. All we need to do is help people change their relationship to their thinking. If we can change the relationship, you can have anxious thoughts and go, yeah, they're anxious thoughts. I feel fine. Because I knew there were anxious thoughts. If I let them take over and kind of consume me, I have no choice about how I respond. I'm consumed with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
If I create a little gap between the thoughts and me, in that gap is a solution. Like, sitting on your sofa and I don't know, somebody says something or does something and you go, they made me angry, is a million miles away from sitting on your sofa and the same person saying or doing the same thing and going, I've got angry and they said those things. They didn't cause the anger. That's really disempowering. If you say, well, they made me angry or they made me stressed, you're giving away everything that you've got. There's a huge difference between causality. I get caught in all of this stuff. Again, it looks easy, it feels easy, but I recognize that it can feel really, really, really tough. And I've had times in my life where it's not been easy and I've got lost in it. And, I'm thankful for the family I've got, the friends I've got, the wife that I've got. There are people around there going, oi, you know this. What are you doing? Come on. That's all we really need, I think, is a gentle nudge in the right direction. I made the analogy recently, which might make sense to you. When I was a kid in Scotland and I was with that Scottish granddad and my granny in Edinburgh, we quite often watched that sheep herding program, One Man and His Dog. Mm-hmm. It used to be on TV. It was hugely popular in the 70s. Okay. Why we were watching a man herding sheep or a dog herding sheep, I don't know. But that's the job that we have, is we don't need to force people to change. We need to just gently remind them of where they're meant to be going. And that's what the dogs do. They don't harass the sheep too much. They don't bite them. They just gently guide them towards where they should be. And that's kind of what we do in this field, isn't it? We try to gently nudge and gently guide people and remind them who they are, what they can do, what they're capable of. It can look like magic, and it can feel like magic. We've seen, and I'm sure you have too, when somebody has been caught in a loop of negative thinking, feeling, and behavior, when they snap out of it just, everything changes. Their face changes. They look 10 years younger in an instant. Lots of the people I work with don't, because that would make them, if they're 12 and they look 10 years younger, that's a bit.
But I imagine they would hold themselves differently, wouldn't you'd see it in a different way. I mean, I think what you're talking about really, I think you said it very beautifully, which is connection, just a nudge from someone that has faith in them, can see their brilliance when they can't. There's some that I think that gives people, it certainly gave me courage, it gave me faith, because I thought, well, if he sees that in me, then I trusted someone enough to think they might be telling the truth, and my shitty committee was lying.
Your shitty committee, that's wonderful. Which reminds me of another thing that we use in our practice a lot. We talk a lot about, if you have thoughts and you dwell on them, they become feelings, and if you let the feelings settle, it informs your behavior or creates your behavior. Yeah. A lot of other change work seems to focus on, we need to change your behavior, particularly with young people. Stop doing that. You've got to change your behavior. You've got to stop it. You'll be excluded. We focus on the other side of the equation, if you like. We talk about thoughts and feelings creating a belief system. Yeah. And we all think that our belief systems are true by nature. It's what we believe. It must be true. It's what I believe. Yeah. But, the initials of a belief system help us to point out that they're actually just BS. They're not true. They're not real. They're BS. Your beliefs change all the time. You don't have the same beliefs that you had when you were 10. You won't have the same beliefs when you're 73. They're always changing. And changing it with purpose, changing it on purpose, it's more and more and more empowering. And if your belief system changes, the thoughts and feelings have shifted, the behavior can only change. It suddenly becomes impossible for them to punch people or to smash windows or to whatever the behavior we're looking to change is.
Yeah.
Because they have a different belief system. And all behavior is learned, first of all, as we know, and all behavior is communication. Even horrible negative behavior is communication. So the luxury that we have working with young people that teachers don't, and I really respect teaching. It's a really tough profession. Both of my parents were teachers. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher, but they put me off. So I've ended up coming around. I can go into a school. We can behave in different ways in schools with young people. We're not teachers.
Yes.
We have a different relationship with them. And we can help them see that, if for instance, somebody is severely anxious about something, it normally means that they really care about that thing. That's what's under, you've got the feeling and then you've got the information that's underneath it. And the information is that thing that you're really anxious about, you care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't give a shit. You wouldn't be anxious about it. And we call this the art of perception, helping people to see that there are other ways of seeing something automatically opens up other possibilities. So, if you focus on the information rather than the feeling, it can really shift how you perceive it all. And if you realize that I've got 1,000 ways of perceiving one thing, you've got 1,000 ways, he's got 1,000 ways, she's got 1,000 ways, the more that we communicate, the more that we share, the more that we put into the middle of our circle, the more likely we are to fully understand this thing. And it's often, I'm thinking of a young woman now whose mum rang me, and she was one that said, "Can you fix my daughter?" She said she's 17, she's really bright, but she's never finished a whole week of school, ever. She's had a diagnosis since she was 7, but she started the behavior when she was 5. And her diagnosis is something called, let me remember what this was called, CVS, cyclical vomiting syndrome. I'd never heard of it.
I haven't heard of that one.
It's not bulimia. It's not connected to any of those other conditions like bulimia and anorexia. It is an anxiety disorder. Her mum said that they'd never been on a family holiday, a full family holiday. They'd gone away and they have to come home. She's never done a sleepover with her friends. She goes and she has to come home. She's never been to the cinema for a full film. She's tried and she has to come home. Can you fix my daughter? And I was like, no, of course I can't. But I don't need to. She was like, what are you talking about? And I said, because I know that she can fix herself. She's not the problem. She is the solution to this ongoing problem that she's had since she was 5. So they agreed to meet with me. We were doing a one-to-one. She brought mum and dad to the session. And during that session, we had a conversation similar to this. About half an hour into the session, she said, "Mum and Dad, you can go. I think I like Robin. I'd like to work with him. You come back in an hour and a half." So they went and got a coffee. As soon as they shut the door, I leant in and I went, "You can tell me the truth now." And she went, "What, you say my mum was a liar?" And I was like, "No, but I want to hear you tell me what's been happening." She kind of vomited her worries. She went for it. She was like, "I'm ugly and I'm fat and my boys don't like me and the girls don't like me and some of the girls do, but I'm not like that. My feet are ugly, my eyebrows are the wrong shape, and I'm never going to get any qualifications, so I won't get into college and I'll never get a job and no one will marry me." And stop. I said, "I think you could go all day with your worries." And she went, "Yeah, my mum said that before." And I went, "Well, when was the last time you were so anxious that you vomited?" And she went, "Last night." And I went, "What were you so anxious about?" And she went, "This, meeting you." And I went, "Oh shit." And she went, "What's wrong?" And I went, "Now I've got anxiety." And she went, "What are you anxious about?" And I said, "Aren't you about to throw up on me?" And she went, "No, I don't feel anxious with you. That's why I told mum and dad to go." And I went, "I think you're a bit of a weirdo." And she said, "That's not very professional." And I went, let me explain. When you go to your grandmother's house, when you go to your friends, when you go to the cinema, when you go to school, when you go to holidays, you get so anxious that you ruin it. And yet here you are in a room with a bloke you've never met before, and you're not anxious. I think that's a bit weird. And then we unpacked she said, don't you want to talk about what happened when I was 5? All the other therapists have I said, I'm not a therapist. I don't need to know what happened when you were 5. I want to know what's going to happen from here on in. She came back a week later, still amazing, done up, like full makeup, big, almost like a ball gown on. And her mum was saying, look what you've done, well done. And I went, it's not me, it's her. She's done it. And we had a conversation. The reason she was done up was she was going to become a model in her friend's sixth form photography project. The 3rd week, she came and she said, I can't come next week. I'm going to Paris for the week with my friend. And I think she had 3 sessions. And she's now in the 2nd year of uni, living away from home, doing really well. I still get emails and cards every now and again. Her mum still thinks I did some sort of voodoo magic. And I said all I did was remind her of who she really is, what she's really capable of, and how she relates to her thinking. Yeah. You can look at what happened when she was 5, and you can dwell on that, and you can allow her to drag it into the present forever.
Yes.
I'd rather change how she relates to that horrible thing, whatever it was. We never got into that. You can, no matter how difficult the past has been, we can't change the past. We can definitely change how we relate to it and how we feel about it. Yeah. Definitely. We can change what we take from it. It's that thing about, I thought I was useless, but actually now I think I'm brave to have been through that and survived.
Yeah. But also you said, you made a good point there where you said she vomited up her worries to you. And I think that connection between physical health and mental health is very, very strong. Robin, I'm going to have to, because we're gonna go over into the other group so that they can ask questions. We've only got 10 minutes. So I just want to say thank you so much for
thank you.
Gosh, what a great interview for my podcast. I really appreciate it. And I might have to do a part 2 with you. But anyway, for now, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise, it's been a real pleasure. And one day we'll get to meet each other properly in real life.
Well, that would be great. For now, though, it's ciao. And we're going to go over into my circle group. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I will put all Robin's, your details in the show notes. So
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Courage, Dear Heart. I really appreciate it. It would be amazing if you could leave me a review and press subscribe so that others who are looking to find freedom from anxiety and habits can find their way here. You can also go to my website, iamcharliewall.com, and subscribe, sign up for my emails. And you'll also find my Facebook group, Finding Freedom from Habits and Anxiety, on Facebook. So please do connect with me, and I'll see you next week.